Midnight draped New York City in its usual electric glow, street lamps casting halos in the mist, traffic humming across bridges, skyscrapers glittering like steel constellations. Then, the noise stopped. Not faded, not quieted, stopped. Engines. Cut mid-rev. Screens in Times Square went black. Even the streetlights died in unison. In that instant, the world became a painting, frozen, breathless. Overhead, the stars began to vanish. It started as a single razor-thin tear across the sky, so bright and white it hurt to look at. A seam of light stretching from horizon to horizon. And it moved, not like a meteor, not like a jet contrail, but like something pulling the night apart. Phones went up. Live streams lit. Across the planet, billions watched as the seams split wider, spilling liquid fire into the clouds. Lightning forked silently in the churning glow. A shadow emerged. No, a shape. Vast, jagged, and wrong. Its surface wasn't smooth metal, but a shifting mosaic of panels that caught and bent the light, making it shimmer like oil on water. The air tasted of metal, of rain, before a storm. Dr. Mara Ellison was still in her observatory when the blackout hit. Every system, from the main telescope array to the humble desk lamp, went dead. The only light came from the window, an unnatural, blinding radiance that painted the walls in stark white. She stepped outside and froze. The object overhead was impossible to measure. No reference points. No stars around it for scale. Just an endless stretch of alien hull blotting out the heavens. As her eyes adjusted, she saw them, etched into the black plates, markings. Her heart hammered. She knew them. In graduate school, she'd analyzed a strange radio pulse intercepted by a deep space probe, a signal so old it predated human rocketry. It had been dismissed as meaningless. But the symbols burned above her now matched perfectly. It wasn't random static. It was a signature. Her mind reeled. They'd been here before. They'd been watching. Across the city, people leaned out of windows, phones raised. On rooftops, in parks, in traffic jams now locked in place. No one screamed. Not yet. It was too big, too incomprehensible to fear. Then the noise came. It began as a low vibration, deep in the bones, rattling teeth and glass. It built into a roar without source, like the earth itself grinding against the sky. The hull shifted, revealing angular protrusions, towers, spines, and something like cathedral buttresses. And then came the lights. Not ours. Theirs. Columns of green-white energy lanced downward, not to strike, but to search. They moved like scanners, sweeping over buildings, cars, people. Anything they touched froze in place, outlines glowing faintly before fading back into shadow. Mara ducked into the doorway, heart racing. It wasn't an attack. Not yet. It was cataloging. News alerts. Stuttered back to life on her phone for a brief glitching moment, then went dead again. She caught enough to see grainy images of the same phenomenon over London, Shanghai, Cape Town, Sydney. It wasn't a ship. It was a fleet. One of the search beams locked onto a rooftop crowd just a few blocks away. In the next instant, they were gone, not vaporized, not burned, gone, as if the air had swallowed them. Finally, the first scream broke the silence. Chaos erupted. People ran in every direction, some toward the subways, some toward the rivers, some just running anywhere. The air grew hotter, not from flame, but from pressure. The alien ship's mass distorted the wind, bending it toward itself. Mara stumbled toward the observatory's underground shelter, her mind flipping between terror and calculation. If those markings matched the probe's signal, then this was no random arrival. This was deliberate. This was... The ground shook violently. She looked up just in time to see a second tier open across the western sky. Another ship emerged, this one even larger, and between them, far in the upper atmosphere, something shimmered faintly, like heat rising from asphalt. Her breath caught. There was more, much more. Somewhere, deep in her gut, she understood the truth before she could name it. This wasn't first contact. This was the return, and this time, Earth wasn't being discovered. It was being claimed. The Pacific Ocean was calm that night, so calm it mirrored the moon in perfect silver. Then the horizon moved. It wasn't clouds. It wasn't a storm. It was shapes, blotting out the reflection, eating the light. At first, the Navy radar operators thought it was a glitch, some odd echo. But when the signal didn't flicker, when the mass kept growing, the laughter died in the control room. From the deck of the USS Harlan, Lieutenant Samuel Briggs raised his binoculars. The black shapes weren't ships, not in any human sense. They were jagged silhouettes, like mountains torn from the earth and suspended in the sky. Their undersides were lattices of pale green lights, flickering in patterns that made his eyes ache to follow. Then, the moon vanished. The wall of alien vessels stretched from horizon to horizon. No engine hum, no roaring thrusters, just the slow, deliberate glide of something meant to intimidate. Back in New York, Dr. Mara Ellison sat glued to her emergency radio, listening to clipped, panicked transmissions. It wasn't just the Pacific. Identical fleets had appeared over 3 other oceans. The blackout from Part 1 wasn't localized, it was planetary. No power, no comms, no satellites. They didn't just arrive prepared, they arrived knowing. Somewhere above the Pacific Fleet, the alien formation stopped. Not slowed, stopped. And then, without fanfare, without even a warning light, one of the ships fired. It wasn't a beam. It wasn't a missile. It was a flash so bright the operators on deck thought they'd been struck directly in the eyes. By the time their vision cleared, the island of Midway was gone. Not burning, not smoking. Gone. The water boiled where it had been. Admiral Kessler ordered an immediate counterattack. The Harlan and its sister destroyers launched their full payload. Crews, missiles, hypersonic torpedoes, railgun slugs screaming into the dark. Not a single one hit. The alien fleet didn't dodge. They didn't shield. Instead, each projectile simply stopped in midair, hovering, rotating slowly before crumpling into powder and falling into the sea. "They're toying with us," Briggs whispered. On the Harlan's bridge, Kessler demanded visual magnification on the lead vessel. The image came into focus. Angular spires rising like obsidian skyscrapers, surface crawling with shifting geometric patterns. Something moved along the hull, too, fast to focus on, like shadows darting in and out of existence. Then came the second strike. 3 columns of pale green light dropped from the largest ship, each one lancing through a separate destroyer. The beams didn't explode, didn't burn. Instead, the ships seemed to erode, their hulls dissolving into glittering particles that drifted upward toward the alien vessel. On shorelines across the Pacific, civilians stood on beaches and rooftops, watching as entire ships were devoured without a sound. In the war room beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Caldwell slammed his fist on the table. "This isn't war," he growled. "This is harvesting." Mara's voice cut through the noise. "They know where we are, how we fight, and what we'll do next. This isn't a first encounter. This is an ambush they've been planning for centuries." Back over the Pacific, the Harlan turned hard starboard, engines screaming at maximum thrust. Briggs glanced at the radar, only to find it empty. Every alien vessel had vanished from the display. "Did they retreat?" the XO asked. "No," Briggs said, lowering his binoculars. His voice was hollow. "They're above us. Every sailor. On deck turned skyward just in time to see the black mass blot out the stars completely. The alien ship's underside pulsed once, like a heartbeat, and then unleashed a shockwave that struck the HumAlien and the surrounding fleet in a perfect circle. No flames, no explosions, just silence. Engines dead, systems fried, ships left adrift. And then one by one, the alien vessels slipped back into the clouds, vanishing as quietly as they had appeared. All that remained on the radio was static, and the sound of the ocean boiling where Midway had been. The elevator's steel doors shut with a dull clang, and the world outside went silent. Major Alex Reiner pressed his thumb against the biometric plate. The panel scanned, beeped once, and began the slow descent. 30 floors, 50, 100. The hum of the lift was the only sound in the dim shaft. The deeper they went, the colder the air became, until the breath of every passenger misted like ghostly smoke. "Never thought this place actually existed," muttered Colonel Hayes beside him. Alex didn't answer. He'd grown up hearing the rumors about a Cold War vault buried so deep it could survive a direct nuclear hit, a vault so secret that it wasn't on any map, civilian or military. Most people dismissed it as conspiracy nonsense, but after the Pacific Fleet's annihilation, nothing seemed impossible anymore. The elevator stopped with a metallic sigh. The doors opened onto a cavernous chamber lit by a few dim halogens. At the far end stood a single vault door, 30 feet tall, 3 feet thick and covered in frost. Its surface bore no markings, no identification, just a circular wheel lock big enough for 2 men to turn. General Caldwell stepped forward, his voice low. "We unseal it now." With a groan of protesting steel, the wheel began to spin. Cold air hissed from the widening gap, carrying a faint scent, like old paper and ozone. Inside, the room was nothing like the dusty, forgotten bunker Alex had expected. It was pristine. Rows of sealed crates lined the walls. Cables ran neatly across the floor toward a single object at the center, a cylindrical machine, 7 feet tall, its surface covered in copper filigree and dull metal panels. It was still humming. Dr. Mara Ellison moved ahead, her eyes narrowing. "This isn't new tech. This is older than anything in the U.S. arsenal. I've seen this design before, in declassified lab notes from the 1960s. It was called Project Gorgon." The name stirred murmurs among the officers. Hayes frowned. "Wasn't that some kind of superweapon?" Mara crouched beside the machine, running her hands over its cold surface. "Not exactly. It doesn't destroy. It hides." Alex blinked. "Hides what?" "Us," Mara said simply. "From them." The officers exchanged glances. She continued, voice tightening with urgency. The idea was simple. Jam alien detection by corrupting their perception of spatial coordinates. To them, it would be as if Earth doesn't exist, like a blank spot on their star maps. Hayes frowned deeper. "If this thing works, why didn't they use it before?" "Because," Mara said, glancing up, "the scientists who built it never finished testing. They feared turning it on might blind us too, cutting us off from our own satellites and communications forever." Caldwell stepped forward, his jaw set. "That fear is irrelevant now. If they can't find us, they can't kill us." Mara hesitated. "There's more. Gorgon isn't just a signal jammer. It works on perceptual resonance. It alters how their ship's AI interprets reality. That means it has to be placed in their space, close enough for their systems to ingest the corrupted data." Alex's stomach dropped. "You mean someone has to deliver it?" Mara nodded. "Directly into their territory." The chamber fell into a heavy silence. Outside, faint tremors rattled the bunker walls, distant impacts from somewhere far above. The war hadn't stopped while they were talking. Finally, Caldwell's voice cut through the cold air. "Then we'll deliver it. Reiner, I want you leading the strike." Alex stiffened. He'd flown missions into hostile airspace before, but this wasn't hostile. It was alien. Ships that could erase an island in seconds, weapons that could turn a fleet into dust. Still, he found himself nodding. Understood. As the meeting broke, Mara remained by the machine, tracing the copper lines with a hand that trembled, not from cold, but from the weight of what they were about to attempt. She whispered, almost to herself, "If this works, they'll lose us. But if it fails—" Alex heard her, even from the doorway. He didn't ask her to finish the thought, because he already knew. The desert at night is cold, but the Mojave felt like ice. Major Alex Reiner crouched beside the black silhouette of his dropship, breath fogging against the inside of his visor. Overhead, the stars blazed, except where they didn't. A yawning patch of absolute blackness swallowed part of the sky. A section where no starlight escaped, no satellite lights passed. That was their target, the alien fleet. The dropships sat on the cracked runway of an abandoned airbase. No lights, no heat, signatures. Even the engines ran cold, an experimental ghost thrust tech that let them move without leaving an infrared trail. Over the comm, General Caldwell's voice was low, tight. "Operation Gorgon delivery is go. Maintain silence. If they—" "See ya, you're done." Alex glanced back at his squad. 8 soldiers in matte black armor, faces hidden, weapons mag-locked to their chests. And behind them, strapped in a shock-dampened cradle, was the device itself, Project Gorgon, humming faintly like a sleeping predator. The dropship lifted without a whisper. The desert vanished beneath them, replaced by open black water. Then, they breached the edge of the void. No stars. No horizon. Just them. Alien hulls slid past, so vast and close they filled the canopy view. Black plates shifting like tectonic plates, each movement sending shivers through the dropship stabilizers. Patterns of light crawled across their surfaces, angular and deliberate, as if the ships themselves were thinking. No one spoke. No one breathed too loud. The nav AI drew their approach vector, a gap between 2 massive vessels where they could slip through undetected, at least in theory. Halfway, in the space between the ships, moved something uncoiled from the darkness, a slender, spined form at least twice the dropship's length. It had no visible eyes, but the way its head turned toward them felt deliberate. A moment passed. Then it drifted away, vanishing back, into the black. Mara's voice crackled over the secure channel from the war room. "Those are sentries. You're clear. For now." They made it to the docking bay of the largest ship, setting down silently on a metal platform so vast it could have swallowed an aircraft carrier. The bay was dim, lit only by pale green veins running along the floor. "Move," Alex ordered. Duh. Squad filed out, boots silent on alien alloy. The air smelled metallic, cold and faintly chemical, like a lab that had never been opened. At the far end of the bay, an open arch led into the ship's interior. The walls pulsed faintly, not with lights, but with life. Organic strands ran between panels, contracting and expanding like muscles. Somewhere deep inside, a rhythmic thrum echoed, slow, steady like a heartbeat. "Keep eyes up," Alex whispered. They reached the central access corridor. That's when they heard it. A sound like wet chitons scraping on metal. From the shadows ahead, 3 figures emerged. Tall, angular, insectoid. Their exoskeletons gleamed with the same shifting patterns as the ship's hull, their limbs bending. At impossible angles, each wore a collar of silver nodes that pulsed in sync with their speech. Speech that came in flawless, unaccented English. "Humans," one said, the word tasting wrong in its mouth. "You returned sooner than expected." No one moved. Alex's instincts screamed to open fire, but the alien's tone was not hostile. It was curious, calculating, We remember, the alien continued. You will not surprise us again. The collar lights flared, and the insectoid stepped back into the shadows, vanishing. What the hell was that? Hayes hissed over comms. Confirmation, Alex said, forcing his voice steady. They do know us. They reached the core chamber. It was a vast sphere, cables and conduits running like roots from a central column. This was the ship's brain. The perfect place for Gorgon. Plant it, Alex ordered. Mara's voice came again, sharper this time. Once it activates, you'll have 30 seconds before their systems detect the anomaly. Get clear fast. The squad locked the device into place. It began to hum louder, copper filigree glowing faintly. Alex felt the air grow heavier, as if the space around them was folding in on itself. Go! He snapped. They sprinted back to the dropship. As they lifted off, a deep vibration rolled through the alien ship. Lights along the hull flickered, dimmed, then began strobing wildly. The ships outside shifted position, colliding slightly as if they no longer saw each other correctly. Alex allowed himself a grim smile. Gorgon was working. The alien ship's corridors felt different on the way back. Alex could feel it, a subtle shiver in the walls, the faint flicker in the pale green veins underfoot. Gorgon was already bending their perception. But instead of making him feel safer, it made the silence heavier, more dangerous. Halfway to the bay, Hayes called out softly, Sir, you'll want to see this. He was standing before a door, if it could be called that. It wasn't mechanical, but a living membrane, pulsing faintly, with threads of light running through it like veins. As they approached, the membrane parted without a sound, revealing a chamber unlike any they had seen. It was spherical. Walls, lined with shifting holographic panels, each one flickering with images, symbols, and alien script. At the center floated a crystalline core, rotating slowly in midair. Its surface shimmered with snapshots of worlds, battles, and strange, unrecognizable creatures. Mara's voice came over the comm. That's it. You found their memory nexus. You're looking at their history. Alex stepped forward. As his armor sensors adjusted, the holograms began shifting, changing to forms that his mind could understand. Now the panels showed Earth. Not today's Earth. This was an Earth of wild forests, untamed rivers, and scattered human tribes, dressed in furs and leather. Above them, alien ships hung like silent moons. This is thousands of years ago, Mara whispered. The panels shifted again, scenes of alien overseers standing over human camps, their insectoid frames silhouetted against fires. They handed tools to humans, taught them to mine, to build, and to kneel. Hayes swore under his breath. They owned us. But the story wasn't over. The next images showed humans turning on their overseers, not with primitive weapons alone, but with strange, brutal tactics that made even Alex flinch. Entire alien garrisons vanished overnight, supply chains burned, ships stolen, and then came the part that made his blood run cold, a fleet of alien vessels fleeing Earth's atmosphere. Chased by human ships, crude, jury-rigged but deadly. They didn't abandon us, Alex murmured. We drove them out. On the last panel, an alien council chamber came into focus. The insectoids stood around a burning holographic globe of Earth. Above it, alien script scrolled rapidly, then vanished, replaced by a single jagged mark. Mara's voice was tight. That's their erasure code. They purged us from their own history. To them, we became a forbidden subject. But now we're back in their records, Hayes said, because we're the ones who broke the rule. The crystalline core pulsed suddenly. A voice filled the chamber, deep, layered, speaking in their tongue but with an echo that scraped against the inside of the skull. Your kind should not have been found again. Every soldier snapped their rifles up, scanning the walls. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere. You forced our retreat. We swore never to return. But the galaxy forgets, and so must be reminded. Alex felt the weight of the words in his chest. This wasn't just an invasion. It was vengeance, a centuries-old score being settled. The crystalline core's surface shifted again, now showing a timeline of alien conquests across the galaxy. On each, resistance forces were crushed. Every species ended in silence, except for one anomaly. Earth. Alex didn't need Mara to tell him what it meant. They were the only species to have ever made the aliens retreat. The membrane door behind them sealed suddenly. The chamber dimmed, panels fading to black. The voice came again, quieter, but somehow colder. You will not escape twice. The walls rippled, and the floor shifted beneath their feet. The entire room began lowering, as if the ship was swallowing them whole. "Reiner!" Mara's voice snapped in his ear. "Get out of there now! Gorgon's time limit is almost up!" Alex grabbed the core with both hands. If this thing held their history, then it might hold their weaknesses too. "Move!" he barked, hauling it toward the membrane. The door resisted, but Gorgon's interference made the ship's system sluggish. It peeled open just enough for them to slip through. The squad ran, boots pounding on alien alloy, alarms beginning to howl in a pitch that drilled straight into the skull. They made it to the bay, strapped in, and launched, the black hull of the dreadnought vanishing into the void behind them. Alex's lap, the crystalline core pulsed like a heartbeat. The ruins of London smoldered under a blood-red dawn. From the shattered spire of St. Paul's, smoke twisted into the sky, only to vanish in mid-air, Gorgon's interference bending light and sensors alike. The alien fleet hung above the city, searching. They weren't blind, but they were confused. Major Alex Reiner watched from the shadows of a crumbling tower block, his visor HUD showing alien vessels drifting in slow, hunting arcs. Every few minutes, one would unleash a scanning beam that swept empty streets, finding nothing but abandoned vehicles and burned-out husks. They didn't know where the humans were. "Not anymore. Signal from command," Hayes whispered over comms. "They're ready." Alex tapped his forearm console. Across Europe, dormant relay beacons came to life, small, cloaked devices planted during the last 48 hours of desperation. Each one was broadcasting a false signal, not Earth's real location, but a fabricated image designed to lure the fleet upward toward the trap. Mara's voice crackled through, urgent. "Remember, the orbital mines are dormant until they're inside the kill zone. Once they cross that threshold, they won't have time to react." Alex's gaze tracked a massive dreadnought above the Thames. It hesitated, turning slightly, its hull shivering with light as if trying to see something. The bait was working. "They're moving," Hayes said. One by one, the alien ships angled skyward, drawn toward the false readings. They rose like leviathans breaking the surface, silent, immense, and unaware of the steel teeth waiting above them. Alex's squad withdrew through the bombed-out streets, moving under the cover of Gorgon's distortion field. Every step was calculated. Every shadow was a potential hiding place. Even with the advantage, the alien presence was suffocating, an invisible weight pressing on the chest. Above, the fleet was converging. In the command bunker, Mara stood before a massive tactical display, the bait and trap sequence unfolding in real time. "They're entering the corridor. Keep feeding them the false target." Caldwell nodded grimly. "On my mark." Alex and his squad reached their extraction point, a concealed tunnel beneath the ruins, leading to a waiting transport. As they boarded, he allowed himself a brief glance at the sky. The dreadnoughts were climbing higher, their outlines flickering against the rising sun. "They're inside the mine net," Mara said, her voice low. "Detonate," Caldwell ordered. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the stratosphere lit up like a second sunrise. The first explosion was silent from the ground, a brief bloom of white light that rippled outward, followed by a cascade of detonations, each one brighter, each one tearing chunks from the alien hulls. The mines were invisible until they struck, programmed to pierce the black plating and unleash plasma cores inside the ships themselves. Dreadnoughts shuddered and split apart, raining molten debris into the upper atmosphere. From their transport, Alex's team watched in silence as the sky burned. Then one of the ships, still intact, began to drop, not crashing, but descending fast, its underside pulsing violently. "They've spotted the deception," Mara warned. "That one's coming for you." The transport's engines roared. The alien vessel ripped through the clouds above, green beams lancing downward, scorching the rooftops as they fled. Alex could feel the heat through the hull, could hear the shriek of vaporized stone and steel. "Evasive pattern, Delta," he ordered. The pilot banked hard, threading between the skeletal remains of high-rises. A beam struck too close, blasting an entire block into dust. In the bunker, Mara's hands flew across the console. "Rerouting Gorgon's field. Now!" The alien beam swept harmlessly past the transport, not because it missed, but because it couldn't see them anymore. The pursuing ship hesitated, scanning wildly. Then, realizing its prey was gone, it rose back toward the upper atmosphere, just in time to hit the last active mine. It vanished in a blossom of white fire. The trap had worked. Alex leaned back in his seat, sweat running cold down his spine. They'd bought themselves time, but not victory. The debris still falling from the sky was only a fraction of the fleet, and the aliens would learn from this. The first alien corpse ship hit the ocean just after midnight. From the shores of the Atlantic, people watched a black silhouette tumble through the clouds, trailing fire like a dying comet, before smashing into the water with a boom that shook cities hundreds of miles away. A second wreck followed minutes later, then a third, debris from the minefield trap finally returning to Earth. But the survivors weren't retreating. Above the clouds, the alien fleet regrouped. Their lines were tighter now, their movements sharper, disciplined. Predators that had been bitten and were ready to bite back harder. From the command bunker, Mara stared at the tactical feed. "They're switching formations. This isn't a scan pattern anymore. It's an attack line." General Caldwell's jaw tightened. "They're coming for the cities." In the dim red light of the operations room, the tension was suffocating. The Gorgon distortion field could only hide certain areas. Everything else would be exposed to the next wave. Mara opened a secure channel. "Alex, it's time." On the ground, Major Alex Reiner's boots crunched over broken glass as he moved through the skeletal remains of Berlin's financial district. His squad followed in silence, each one a shadow in the night. Above, the clouds pulsed faintly with green light, the alien armada moving into strike position. "Relay positions?" Alex asked. Hayes checked his wrist display. "In place. Charges armed." They were standing in the middle of a trap the size of a city. Over the past week, special forces had laced skyscrapers, tunnels, and rail lines with shaped charges and improvised railguns all rigged to detonate in perfect sequence. The bait. Themselves. The sky cracked open. Green lances of alien plasma fell like divine judgment, tearing through buildings, igniting everything they touched. The ground shook as entire city blocks crumbled under the first wave. "Wait for it," Alex growled, even as his visor dimmed against the blinding light. An alien skimmer dropped through the clouds, a sleek spearhead bristling with cannons. Behind it came heavier craft, troop carriers, siege engines that could level a block with one strike. They entered the kill zone. Now, the city erupted. The first detonations came from below. Subway lines packed with shaped explosives, sending molten concrete spewing upward. Skimmer craft buckled, snapping in half as they were thrown into high-rise facades. Then the railguns fired. Hidden in the shadows of gutted towers, jury-rigged mass drivers spat tungsten slugs into the alien troop carriers. The impacts punched through their armor like paper, ripping the vessels into pieces that tumbled burning into the streets. The aliens tried to rise, but the upper air was no safer. Every rooftop had been armed, and the buildings themselves were falling, collapsing in controlled demolitions that buried skimmers in avalanches of steel. Alex's HUD flared with kill confirmations. "Move! Phase 2! The squad dashed through alleys as more alien ships poured in, ignoring the wreckage, hungry for the kill. But as they closed in, they triggered more hidden traps. EMP bursts that fried targeting arrays, decoy drones that mimicked human heat signatures before exploding in their faces. In the chaos, a massive shadow descended, a command dreadnought, its hull bristling with shield emitters. It ignored the smaller losses and focused its cannons on Alex's squad, clearly aware they were the ones orchestrating the trap. A blinding beam vaporized the street behind them. "Mara!" Alex barked over comms. "Tell me you've got something." Incio, the bunker, Mara's fingers danced across her console. "Releasing the countermeasure. Now!" From the rooftops, black spheres the size of cars launched into the air. They hovered for a fraction of a second before bursting into clouds of metallic dust, nano-reflective particles that clung to alien shields, scattering their targeting systems. The dreadnought's next beam went wide, slicing a skyscraper in half instead of hitting the squad. "Time to go," Alex ordered. The final charge detonated, a controlled implosion of Berlin's last standing megatower, its collapsing frame wrapped in railgun barrels aimed upward. The falling structure unleashed one final volley point-blank into the dreadnought's exposed underbelly. The alien flagship came apart in a silent blossom of fire, fragments raining down like black snow. In the command bunker, Caldwell exhaled, slowly. "That's one. How many more?" Mara's eyes stayed fixed on the display. "Enough to make this night longer than any in history." The alien fleet stopped firing. For a moment, the world held its breath. Across every continent, survivors peered from the ruins, listening to the silence above, the kind of silence that comes before a predator's final strike. In the command bunker, the tactical feed flickered with red icons converging in the upper atmosphere. The remaining enemy ships were gathering in one tight formation, their massive cores glowing brighter with each second. Mara's blood went cold. "They're charging for a planetary strike. One shot. They mean to wipe everything." General Caldwell leaned forward. "How long until—" A sharp ping cut him off. The estimate appeared on the screen. 6 minutes. Above the clouds, the alien armada formed a single roiling sphere of metal and light. The flagship fragments had been replaced by an enormous central vessel, its hull latticed with plasma conduits. Around it, smaller ships linked together, channeling power into the core weapon. It was beautiful in a way. Beautiful like a guillotine. Half a world away, Major Alex Reiner crouched in the wreckage. Of Berlin, his squad reduced to half its original size. He could feel the vibrations through the ground, as if the planet itself was aware of what was coming. "Mara," he said over comms, voice low. "Tell me you've got an idea." Her voice came back tight, urgent. "We hit them with everything, not from the ground, from orbit." "Orbit?" Alex frowned. "Mara, we don't have—" "We do. We've had it since before the war even started. The old Project Hephaestus." Caldwell's voice broke in. "It's experimental. Never tested in the field. You overload it and you'll destroy the launch site and whatever's left of the eastern seaboard." Alex glanced at the sky, where the alien glow was intensifying. "If we don't try, there won't be a seaboard." Project Hephaestus wasn't a weapon in the conventional sense. It was an asteroid redirection platform designed decades ago for planetary defense. Somewhere out in the cold dark, a cluster of dense nickel-iron rocks drifted exactly where Earth's gravity cannons could pull them in. If they timed it right, they could drop the equivalent of 1,000 nukes on the enemy's concentrated position. If they timed it wrong, the launch command went through. In an abandoned silo buried deep beneath Greenland, titanic electromagnets roared to life. The control systems began pulling the nearest asteroid into a precision path, a path that would intersect Earth's upper atmosphere exactly where the alien fleet hovered. The countdown began. 3 minutes. The aliens seemed to sense something. Ships broke formation, scanning frantically. Mara watched their readings spike. They know. They're accelerating the charge, Caldwell said grimly. We've got less than 90 seconds. In Berlin, Alex and his squad scrambled to set up long-range jammers, anything to disrupt the alien coordination. The sky had gone white now, the weapon's energy flaring like a second sun. Over comms, Mara's voice was steady, almost calm. Alex, if this works, tell your people. Her words were cut off as the ground lit up, shadows stretching long and sharp. The alien weapon was seconds from firing, and then the sky split. A shape blazed through the atmosphere, brighter than anything in living memory. The asteroid, black, jagged, and impossibly fast, tore past the thin veil of clouds and slammed into the center of the alien formation. The detonation was silent at first. A blossom of white fire engulfed the fleet, expanding outward with a shockwave that bent the clouds into concentric rings. Fragments the size of battleships tumbled burning toward the oceans. The central vessel, the one holding the planetary weapon, crumpled inward as its own power core went critical. This time, the sound came, a rolling, world-shaking boom that seemed to rattle every bone in every survivor's body. In the bunker, Mara stared at the empty space where the red icons had been. Slowly, one by one, they vanished from the display. In Berlin, Alex dropped to his knees. The glow above was gone. The night sky, for the first time in months, was just a night sky. Hours later, every surviving human broadcast the same signal, in every language, on every frequency. This is Earth. We are alive. We are united. And if you come again, Caldwell's voice was steady, his eyes hard. You won't leave. Moral. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't our machines. It's that when the fire comes, we stand together.